Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Morgana Radio, where I, your host, Morgana Rae, interview the world's most fascinating thought leaders on money, love, and magic. And you are going to love today's guest, Derek Rydall. I interviewed him for my Manifestation Summit earlier this year, and I loved his interview so much that I dragged him back. So he is Mr. Super Spiritual, go deep, but he's also real and honest and authentic and fun, and this is unrehearsed. We are both in a kind of silly mood. If you are listening to the iTunes recording, you probably also want to head over to morganaradio.com and see what Derek is wearing and, you know, what our faces and our hands are doing, and get the links to whatever comes up in the conversation. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Derek Rydall right now. So he is part of this next generation of inspirational thought leaders. He is the author of the #1 Amazon and Barnes & Noble best-selling book, Emergence, 7 Steps for Radical Life Change. He is the world's #1 expert on the revolutionary Law of Emergence. He has trained top executives at Fortune 500 companies like American Express to Disney, and he has specialized in empowered leadership and communications. He's coached celebrities and media professionals, including Oscar and Emmy winners, on creating conscious entertainment. What else? Let's take a look. He's a regular on the Huffington Post, and he's the host of the top-rated Emergence podcast. So those of you who are listening on iTunes, be sure to subscribe to Morgana Radio so that you can hear other fabulous guests. And while you're on iTunes, be sure that you subscribe to Derek's Emergence podcast. And believe me, once he opens his mouth.
Or yours.
Well, exactly. You'll definitely want to go over and check out the Emergence podcast. And yeah, I think I met Derek 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. I'm not sure, but I remember the first time he talked about his philosophy and emergence. And it just felt so good to get away from this like coaching paradigm of fixing broken people. And there's just so much love and wisdom and respect that comes through in his work. And you're really, really going to love this. So let's see if there's anything else that I need to share.
We could just, you could just talk about me and just share really nice ideas for the.
Yes.
I'm good.
I wanted to make sure that everything you wanted shared got presence. But my experience of Derek is he's just a really genuine, kind, wise, impactful person. And something that I've heard from people in my community because we've been on a bunch of the same events as expert speakers, is I've heard from multiple people that the 2 people that they resonated with, were me and Derek. So it's like, I feel like we come from the same planet.
I was just going to say that. I was literally just going to say that.
Yeah. Aliens from like the same sphere.
Exactly.
So here is what it's kind of hard to do.
Is, right?
Here's today's topic. It's awakened wealth.
Yes.
This is Derek's revolutionary practice for mastering money and manifesting all your needs. And the big hint is the solution is already in your house. And Derek promises to reveal to you the 7 gifts that give you everything. He's going to reveal the great reversal and what that means, what it is, and what to do about it. You're going to learn the universal betrayal. You are also going to learn the two biggest hypnotic wealth spells and how to wake up from these false perceptions. You are going to learn the real cause of debt. It's not what you think. And most importantly, you are going to learn why most manifestation techniques are totally bogus and don't work. And I say that with love and respect. And you're going to gain a revolutionary principle that will get you off that hamster wheel. So...
And all of this in only 12 hours.
No, more like 30 to 40 minutes. So Cliff Notes. But when you want more, where do people go to go deeper? Let's just throw it out there right now. Where do people go deeper?
Well, they can go to, first of all, they can go to emergencetraining.com and get a free program on the emergence process. They can also go to emergencetraining.com/awakened-wealth-ebook and get a ebook around the work we're going to be talking about today.
Okay. And before you crash your car by trying to text that URL while driving, don't.
Yeah, please don't.
The links are posted at morganaradio.com to make it easy for you. You can see the video, you can get the links, but for now, just listen, receive, and absorb what Derek is going to teach. So let's start with the 7 gifts that give you everything. Give me some gifts. What are they?
Well, yeah, let me lay a little context here.
Okay.
For people that might not. The basic idea, the important thing to understand, the big secret and not so big secret around all wealth generation, all manifestation is the word giving. And we know giving, we think of giving as a good thing, but we often think of it as sort of a moral thing. It's good to be on the side of the givers. It's good to be a giver. It's holy, it's good, it's moral, but we're not talking moral, we're talking giving as a principle. And it's important to understand from the emergence paradigm, whatever's missing is what you're not giving. From the emergence paradigm, life doesn't happen to you, it happens through you. There is no life out there that's happening to you. That's an optical illusion. Even Einstein said our sense of separation from each other and other things is an optical illusion. There's no life out there. Everything that's showing up in your life is first coming through you, through your consciousness. It's all a big movie being projected from your consciousness. Oh, we're getting some little things on there. Are you making that happen, Morgana?
Yeah, I was just giving you little love props. Go on.
That's so cool. So it's all an inside job. And this is what all the great teachers have taught, from Buddha to Jesus to Lao Tzu to Kuan Yin. They've all essentially taught it's already in you. You brought it all with you. In fact, the word human comes from a Sanskrit term for the dispenser of divine gifts. So we've brought everything with us, whatever you want to call it, nirvana, the kingdom of heaven, the Tao, the inner storehouse of riches, but it's all in us, in our mind, in our consciousness. And we've been taught, though, that we're lacking something, something's missing, something's broken, something's wrong, and we're going to attract it to us or go make it happen. And the whole model of emergence, it's already here. You don't make it happen, you make it welcome. So that's an important thing to understand, that you've already got it all. The second important thing to understand is that it's not material, that wealth is not material. Wealth is not dollar bills and stocks and bonds and houses, that it's spiritual or energy. And so another way to think of it is that your favorite music is broadcasting right where you are. But it's not manifest until you tune the dial of your frequency to the frequency where the music is, to the right station. When your frequency is that frequency, that station becomes manifest. So you now have a manifestation, and to play on words. So that's all, but it's already broadcasting. We know that. That's not woo woo. We know it's already broadcasting, but it's not manifest. So manifestation is not about making something happen that's not already happening. It's about making what's already happening, but is in energetic or invisible form, making it visible, tangible, etc. So I want to just establish a couple core things. It's all within you. It's already here. All the abundance you could ever need, all the wisdom, the guidance, the genius, the wealth. You brought it all with you. It's a part of your being. It's infinite. It's inexhaustible. Nothing the world can do can add anything to you or take anything away. Now the question goes, okay, if it's all within me, it's all energetic or spiritual or consciousness, that's the real nature of substance. Now, how do I get it out? How do I start to express it? How do I become a wealth generating machine, a manifestation machine more effortlessly, regardless of my conditions? And the 7 gifts is the framework for how to do that. Now, there's a lot more we could say about this in terms of like how the great betrayal connects to this. And I'm sure we'll touch upon that. But we're jumping right into like how you begin to generate this wealth substance or this wealth energy that will appear ultimately as dollars and houses and opportunities and all the wonderful stuff that you want to create in your life. So, were you going to say something, Morgana? You good?
No, I'm just feeling tingles.
Oh, okay, cool.
It's just landing so right. So keep
absolutely
going. Yeah.
Beautiful. So, so the 7 gifts, the framework is giving out, giving up, giving in, giving away, giving thanks, giving to yourself, and forgiving. So these are 7 modes of giving. And I'll go through them briefly and we can touch upon a couple of them more deeply. But this is the framework of giving. And when you master this framework so that all these gifts are being given fluently and abundantly and habitually, you're just a wide open channel for life to just start pouring through you and also to pour through other channels. But it's all coming from you. Even though it looks like other people might be giving you stuff, they're like the many branches on the tree of life, but it's all pouring out of your consciousness. It's just finding all these other branches to bear fruit on. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So it's never coming from anybody, but it can come through them. But it's your abundance that's showing up. So the first gift, giving out, this is like your time, your talent, and your treasure. And that basically means service, your creative expression or your gifts, and your actual substance, giving of your substance. And the reason why this is important is that a lot of us have been conditioned to believe, well, I'll give of my time when I have more time to give. And so we're not, but we want to. There's a part of us that wants to be of service in some way, that wants to help this person or that. But we say to ourselves, I just don't have the time right now. Let me get some more money or some more time or whatever, and then I'll do it. And we are understanding life exactly opposite of how it works. Life doesn't happen and then you show up. If you want more to show up in your life, you have to show up to life more. If you want more to come into your life, you have to let more life come out of you first. So you have to show up and start serving and giving of your time, which first of all is a statement, I have time. And so now by the fact that I'm giving it, I'm basically saying I have something to give. And that's why the biblical statement says, to he who has, more will be given and it would be multiplied. But to he who has not, even what he has will be taken away. It's a statement of consciousness. It's all about a consciousness of having. I am, I have. Versus I will be, I will have when all these things get better. And then you're constantly waiting, and whatever you're waiting for, you're actually waiting with and weighing it down. So we have to step into having. So you give of your time. That's the first thing. You give of your talent. A lot of people are waiting to bring their gifts to the world for when they get validation or they feel good enough or confident enough or enough opportunity. And maybe you're a singer and you want to sing, but you don't have concerts to sing at. Like, well, and I'm like, put on a concert for your cat if that's what you have to do. But start giving of your talent. Give it as fully as you can, starting today and as a way of life. And then treasure. A lot of people want to be philanthropic. They want to donate. They want to give to charity, but they're like, I don't have any money. Or I don't have enough yet. I don't want to just give a dime or a dollar. I want to give a lot. So I got to wait and earn a lot, and then I'll start giving. Again, it doesn't work that way. You have to start the flow now, even if it's just a dime, even if it's just $1. And again, I like to quote biblical and Buddhist teachings. In the Bible, when Jesus and his disciples are watching the people in the temple, and like the pious people are giving all this money, and this old lady is giving like a little penny. And Jesus says, who do you think gave more? And they're like, well, the people that get, is like, it was that old lady, because to her, that one penny meant so much. So it's not about the quantity, it's about the quality of love that in which you give. So you give of your time, your talent, your treasure, and you start opening up the channels, that energy to flow out of you, because that's where it's been locked up. It's in you. As the poet Robert Browning says, you must release the imprisoned splendor. So that's giving out. Giving up is you have, or let's start with giving away. This is more understandable. In your life, in your closet, your car, your trunk, your drawers, you got all kinds of stuff that is sitting there that is not being used. And like, why do we have a junk drawer? There's another name for that. It's called a trash can, but anyways, that's a aside. But so we have all this stuff in our closets, our car, our trunk, our drawers that we don't use. We have clothes we've never worn. We won't get rid of them. We have stacks of magazines that we never read, and you're never going to. But we keep telling ourselves, but I might read them someday. No, you won't. And so what's happening is that all of that is stuck energy. And when you start, and I've been teaching this for a while, and that book that came out, something like The Magic Art of Tidying Up or something, it was a huge phenomenon. One of the biggest tips was when you start releasing all this stuff in your house, she said there's almost a mystical thing that happens. So she's right. She caught it. That's one of the keys to this gift. When you start releasing all those magazines and stuffed animals and clothes you don't wear and books you don't read and boxes of stuff that you've never even opened, but you bought it because it was on sale, if you look at the reason why you're not releasing it, there's a story of guilt or fear or shame. Oh my God, but I spent this money and I'm such a loser if I don't do something with this. Well, guess what? You're already a loser. No, I'm just kidding. Energy is already true. In other words, you already feel like a loser, or you already feel like you wasted your money. And the problem is that can't move because you're holding on to that energy in the form of that stuff. When you start letting it go, clearing out your house, your car, your cupboard, your drawers, giving it away, now that energy gets to move, it gets to serve. Right now it's sitting there stagnant. You've created an energetic swamp. Now it gets to move and open up new tributaries, where now you create the space where what's been trying to get in energetically actually can now. So that's the second gift, giving away. Yes.
I'm raising my hand here on video. Oh, Mr. Kata.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. You young lady in the front row.
Thank you. I've noticed that giving really nice stuff to charity. I don't like giving ratty, holy, dirty stuff to, nice stuff.
You can throw that away,
Yeah, that's why we have trash cans. But makes me feel so wealthy that I have so much that I can give away nice stuff.
Yes.
And the other thing I've noticed over the years, coming from many generations of hoarders, is that the more I get rid of stuff, the more it feels like it feels like I have more, because now I can actually see and access what I have. It's not buried. Yes.
That's brilliant. And don't you notice when you clean up an area or you release a bunch of stuff, you are breathing differently, you're thinking more clearly. It's all a metaphor. Your outer environment is literally a snapshot of your inner environment. Metaphysically, your house means your consciousness or your mind. So whenever you hear that term, they're talking about your mind or your consciousness. But your outer house is like a projection of that. So when you start clearing that away, suddenly you can think clearer. It's because there's flow now. It's literally one of the meanings of feng shui. There's more flow. There's more movement. Energy is able to move. And yes, you suddenly understand the meaning less is more.
Yeah.
It's expansive. When you release all the baggage off the side of a hot air balloon, it rises. When it's weighed down, it can't. If a plane's got too much cargo, it can't get flight. So your life is weighed down by all this stuff. But it's important to know that the stuff is there because it represents some blocked emotional energy, some unreconciled thing. So as you start to move it, it can bring up stuff. It can allow for all kinds of deeper healings as well. But now life can flow more into your life again. And as you said, there's a lot of value when you give stuff away to people that can actually use it. Suddenly you feel the abundance that was trapped in that object because it couldn't express and be useful. And you feel better. And remember, at the end of the day, it's all vibrational, like that radio station. Everything we're doing here is about tuning you in to that station where your music is playing, where that beat of abundance is already marching, where that symphony of success is already expressing. So as you start to give this stuff away and you feel lighter, you feel more expanded, you feel clearer, you feel good that somebody else is, all of that feeling tone is congruent with the experience of an abundant person. Does that make sense? So now you are vibrationally tuning into the station KRICH, K-Rich, and out of the station KLACK, KLAC. Because vibrationally, that's the kind of energy and the thoughts and the feelings that play on that broadcast. So you're giving out your time, your talent, your treasure. You're not waiting. You are giving away everything that no longer serves you, that you no longer need. If you haven't worn it in minimum 18 months, but ideally 12 months, you got to give time for cycles of all the seasons. You're not going to wear it, give it away. And then, so that's giving out, giving away, giving up. Now you want to look, you've worked on the outer house. You want to look on the inner house and go, what is the furniture and the baggage that I'm holding that's cluttering up my inner house? And that looks like habits of complaining, gossiping, blaming, judging, those things that you do on more of a chronic basis. They're kind of like, they're like furniture that's pretty common. It's that old chair you're familiar with. The cushion's all nice and worn in because you sit it in every day and judge or complain or whatever. You want to start to notice those, and one by one, you want to give up those patterns, those habits. And again, it's all energy. So those habits and patterns that are not expansive and serving you, that have become familiar and protective, they're blocking, again, they're like sluice gates in the canals and the channels. All the energy is trying to flow, and you release those, and all this new energy starts flowing in that. So that's giving up. Then giving in is, there's something that's trying to break through in your life right now, something that's trying to emerge. It's what I call an emerging impulse. And for many of you, there's an urgency of emergence that if you don't respond to becomes an emergency. And so there's something that's trying to emerge, but in order for you to let go into it, you have to let go of some area of comfort or convenience or safety that you've been holding on to, thinking that it's protecting you, at the same time wanting to move forward. It's like trying to be an acorn and an oak tree. The acorn protective shell has to die. It has to fall apart and have a moment of being exposed and vulnerable in order for the young sapling to burst forth into new life. So there's some area in your life, and as I'm talking, just sort of feel into that. If I really trusted life, if I really trusted I was supported, that I was abundant, that all of my needs would be met, what's something that I would step into? Maybe it's a conversation. Maybe it's a hard conversation. Maybe it's a request. Maybe it's asking for what you want, charging for what you're worth, launching something. But there's something there. There's always something. And so giving in is not about giving in and acquiescing to the fear or the problem, but giving in to that thing that's trying to emerge in your life. Surrender doesn't mean surrendering to what doesn't work. It means yielding and surrendering to what's trying to emerge. So the acorn doesn't surrender to the broken shell. Oh, my life's falling apart, I guess I'll just surrender. It's surrendering to the oak tree. So we're surrendering up. We're not surrendering down. So giving in is about letting go and giving in to that emerging impulse, saying yes to your yes. So do you want to say anything, Morgana, before I move on? Or should I keep going?
That's just beautiful. I was, thinking of the acorn and upgrading, like becoming the oak or whatever wants to emerge, does involve death.
Yes.
And we get to grieve, and we get to thank and honor what is dying. But there is, I think that's, that's what you're talking about, just surrendering to that release so that the new thing can come in. And so I'm just listening to you, kind of applying it to my own life and going,
Awesome.
wow, where does that apply? Very
awesome.
cool.
Yeah. And so it's important, what you're giving into, again, to bring it, keep it in the pocket of the energetics. All of this is about the 7 gifts is about clearing and opening all of the channels through which life flows in and out. That's what we're doing. Think of it like that. Each one is a channel. And as you clear it out, now that energy gets to flow out of you and also flow back into you. And so in this example, there is an energy trying to emerge, and you're using a coping mechanism to try to change your world, but stay the same. And it doesn't work. So you have to be willing to surrender or give in to that energy, to that particular channel. And so again, I'm just reframing surrender, that it's not about acquiescing to the circumstance. It's about surrendering to what's emerging. It's about surrendering to the higher, to the better, to the more, to the expansion. Okay. So that's, I for some reason have this image of a child when they're moving from one house to a new house, and the child is like holding on to, like the mailbox, and they won't let out the window, and they won't let go, and their parents trying to drive out of the driveway, and you have to let go to keep moving forward. So you're letting go to rise. You're not letting go to because I think some people have a negative connotation about surrender. So that's giving in. So there's giving out, giving up, giving away, giving in, and then you have giving thanks. And gratitude is the evidence that the gift has already been given, right? And so when we talk about gratitude a lot, gratitude is the vibration of it's already done. And so it's not a metaphysical trick to attract things to you. It's the mystical truth that it actually is already here. It's already here. You just can't see it. And so practicing gratitude is about practicing living in what's already true, learning to live by insight and eyesight, by faith instead of form. And so it's not a woo-woo thing. It's not like I'm doing this gratitude to make something happen in my life. You're being in gratitude because you understand principally that the good is already here, and gratitude is another one of those tuning of your dial that gets your frequency in line with the frequency where the music is already playing, where the abundance is already flowing. Yes.
There's something huge there, which is when The Secret came out, and a lot of, the kind of law of attraction teachings that are floating around, there's this sort of like manipulative, fearful undercurrent that if I can think positively, if I can do my gratitude list, I can do all this stuff, I can manipulate and trick the universe into giving me what I want. And that's completely the opposite of what you're saying. You are not trying to change the universe at all.
Not at all. Not at all. Exactly. That's the emergence model. That's what the law of emergence is the law of emergence is the recognition that it's already here, it's already done, it's already happening, but it's infinite and it's invisible and it's real. It's a changeless, perfect reality. Again, biblically, in the beginning, there was God and there was a word and the word was created. Everything was made out of the word and nothing, or as the Course in Miracles says, God made all that was made, and whatever God didn't make was never made. And it's perfect. So there's a perfect spiritual universe, or a perfect energetic universe, or whatever concept works for you. It's already here. It's already happening. Even quantum physics knows this now. Talks about there's a field of pure potentiality, and your observation collapses that infinite potential into a particle of actual experience. But the potential, the ideas, the patterns, it's already here. And so nothing you can do can change the nature of life or of the universe. As it says, who by taking thought can add 1 cubit to their stature? Nothing you can do is going to change God or divine intelligence, or get this divine intelligence to do anything more than it's already doing. It's like the law of buoyancy is what it is. Nothing you can do is going to make it stop working or start working. You could be the greatest person in the world, You could be a saint. And if you go onto the water and you don't understand how to live in accordance with the law of buoyancy, you're going to sink. So you can be the most evil person on the planet, but if you understand the law of buoyancy and you operate in principle, you will float. So it's important. It's principle. It's not personal. And so there's this perfect universe. You can't change it, but you can learn to come into alignment with it. You can learn to come into integrity with it. The seed already has the plant. You can't make a plant happen, but you can create the conditions in the soil that match the pattern with already in the seed. And then that energetic pattern that's already there will become manifest. And so that's what we're doing here. We're learning principle of wealth and abundance. And how do we need to design? It's like the laws of aerodynamics were always there, but it took somebody to understand them to design a ship that was in integrity with it, and then it would fly. So we're designing our ship, we're designing our life to be in integrity with these aerodynamic laws of abundance, so that we don't make abundance happen. We're able to come into alignment with this flow that's always happening. And people will say, oh my God, you got so much more wealth or opportunity or this or that. And you're like, no, I've just come into harmony or into integrity with what has always been going on. And again, this is what all the great masters, go back and read the teachings of Buddha, Jesus, whoever. That's what they were saying.
Upanishads. Now,
all the same thing.
Something's been buzzing in the back of my head for a really long time, and I'm sure we're going to get into it with, real cause of debt and universal betrayal and stuff like that. But there's a really big difference between money and wealth. Absolutely. And money, we are not frowning on money. Money is a really important way that that wealth can be expressed. But you and I have known some people with a lot of cash living in poverty. Can you talk about that for a second?
Absolutely. The first thing to make a distinction is that money is, or if we're talking about dollars, that's just a symbol of wealth. So all of these are symbols, dollar bills, stocks, bonds, cars. And, before it was dollars, it was chickens, whatever your symbol of trade was, your symbol of currency. And interestingly, you've heard the word salary. Somebody gets paid a salary. That comes from the root salt, because the Romans used to be paid in salt, and that was the salary. So interesting. So that was just the currency that they had. So that's why when you hear things like the love of money is the root of all evil, actually, a lot of people think it's just money is the root of all evil, but it's not. It's the love of money is the root of all evil. What it's really saying, when you understand what the money is, just an outer symbol of the current. So there's this current, and you put a boat on top of the current to see where the current's going. That's what money is. It's just a symbol of the current. So it's saying when you love the symbols, when you become attached to the symbols, that's the root of evil. That's the cause of all our problems, because you're putting power in an effect, in something that has no power, that is not the source of wealth. That dollar bill is not a source. It's completely inert. And so the love of symbols of wealth is what causes all evil. And by the way, evil is just live spelled backwards. So evil is just when you live in reverse the principles of life, you experience what the world calls conflict or evil. So when you fall in love with the outer symbol, you give your power away to that symbol or the source of that symbol, the banks, the economies, the job, the boss, the partner, the husband, the wife. That's why that causes all your problems. When you realize the source of all wealth is in you, and when you're tapped into that, just like the fruit on a tree is not the wealth of the tree, it's the symbol of an invisible process. And when all the fruit's gone, the farmer doesn't go, well, that tree's broke, and cut it down. The farmer knows it'll produce another harvest and another harvest, as long as she tends to the roots. Deep roots, rich fruits. If you forget about the roots, you don't have any more fruits. So the roots are in you. And so when you anchor that, which is what the Awaken Wealth process gets you to do, regardless of economy, regardless of your job, your partner, whatever, you can produce the fruits, and they'll show up in your life from whatever channel is available once you're connected to that real source. And so what happens is, if you've learned to manipulate conditions, you know, like the law of attraction, you manifest a bigger paycheck, but you haven't got this inner source connection, you end up just being broke at a higher income bracket, right? So you might even manifest a bigger house, but you find yourself even less at home, right? So you manifest a new relationship, but very soon you're in the same arguments. You manifest a new job, and before you know it, somehow you have the same jerky boss, just wearing a different costume. It's because you've manipulated the world, but you've stayed fundamentally the same and are still coming from that sense of lack or separation or deprivation. And now you're magnifying that just in a bigger way. And so there's people that have all kinds of money because they've learned to manipulate, to manifest dollars and things like that. And they are more terrified about losing it than you are. And so there's a deep impoverishedness to them. And they're not happy. They're not abundant. They're not free, you know, and it's not unusual to see those individuals become addicted to drugs and alcohol and all manner of things. And ultimately do you see that person in the background?
For those of you not seeing the video, some topless man went like creeping like a little animal in the background to the other room as if we weren't going to see him. It was very. I
have to confess, I'm actually running a brothel, and there's topless men.
You know, when I saw you in that like net shirt, with
you saw me, and
something was up.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, we were at a mastermind like a week or two ago, and it was 80s night, and Derek showed up as a glam rocker.
There he goes again. Yeah, I showed up like an 80 glam rocker with the fishnet thing and the nipple ring, and I was
Mr. Spiritual.
Yeah, that was an example where less was more, right? So I was just
very surprising.
I was just demonstrating abundance.
Yeah.
So there was an abundance of flesh on display that night. But so that's just my doesn't matter.
And that is immortalized on iTunes.
Yes, my son or his partner were slinking by. I said, make sure you go around this one way, so that's okay. We were talking about how, you know, you can have a lot of stuff, money, but be impoverished inside, and that's absolutely true. And I mean, one of the greatest examples is this, you know, the movie Citizen Kane, and the story of how, you know, at the end of the day, he had all the money most people could ever have, the biggest house, you know, and all that he cared about in his dying breath was Rosebud. What was Rosebud? That was his little sleigh that he rode as a child when life was innocent and free and fun and connected and alive. And I get chills even as I'm talking about it, because when he had all of the riches that a king could have, all that mattered was that sense of love and connection and family and play. And that was symbolized in this sleigh that he would ride down the hill called Rosebud. Yeah. And the whole movie is this mystery of them.
Now you don't have to see the movie because
hopefully you've seen it. It's only like 100 years old. Hopefully you've seen it by now.
Yeah.
But if not, it's worth seeing. The reporter is searching through the whole movie. What is this Rosebud? What is this?
And what is motivating him? And that's, and I think, you know, it's still current today where you see people, Exxon lying about climate change. You know, it would rather see humanity become extinct than to have less income that quarter.
Yeah. Yeah,
crazy,
I mean,
crazy.
Those are the real, you know, extreme examples of this greed run amok, and the sense of separation. Again, that is exactly the love of money is the root of all evil being played out. It's this belief that the dollar bills and the bottom lines, that's our source of wealth, and then all the things that money's connected to. You know, we haven't talked about it, but in the Awaken Wealth work, I obviously go deep because wealth is connected to core issues like power, self-worth, self-esteem, a sense of security, very much a sense of self. And that's why you know people have lost money. You know, one of the biggest stock market drops in a day back in the 80s, people were jumping out of windows and killing themselves because the stock market dropped 600 points. It did. The fact that it went back up times 2, 3, 4, 5 a year or two later, they'll never see, because they were so identified with what this meant to them. This meant so much to them. They were so attached and had given so much of their power away to this outer symbol, that when that outer symbol went away, they were empty inside. Yeah. And they felt like their life had crumbled. And so that's what that really is talking about. And so awakened wealth is realizing that all of those outer symbols are not your source, not your boss, not your partner, not the economy. No matter how good or bad it's doing, it has nothing to do with how much wealth you have. No matter what your bank account says, it has nothing to do with how much wealth you have. No matter if you're the person, the stay-at-home mom or dad, and the other person's earning, it has nothing to do with how much wealth you have. And that, in fact, if it's coming into your life, even though it might be coming through them, it's really coming from your consciousness, or it couldn't show up in your life. So when you really understand that, you can become free and so empowered to generate wealth, and to generate in a way that's conscious, that's congruent, that's constructive, that's life affirming, and ultimately not selling your soul for the things in the world. And that's really what the great betrayal is, what you talked about in the beginning.
Yeah. What is the great betrayal?
So the universe is set up to betray you whenever you make something or someone outside of you your source of safety, security, supply, or support. It's set up to fail you, because the minute you believe they're your source, you have to give them your power now. And now when they have your power, you have to start controlling, manipulating, contorting yourself, wrapping yourself into a pretzel, becoming the thing you think you need to be to keep getting the thing you think they have, or to not get what you have taken away. Mm. And so quickly or eventually you become really a caricature of yourself. You're not, and now you're not able to really authentically show up. You're not able to give the gift fully that you're here to give. And if you're not able to give the gift you're here to give, you don't have a reason to be here. And I know that sounds harsh, but that's the deeper esoteric meaning of, Jesus cursing the fig tree because it's not bearing any fruit and it dies. It's telling us you have gifts to give. You have a life to live and a gift to give. And if you're not giving it, you're not doing and being the reason why life has put you here. And like a tree that's not producing fruit, eventually that branch gets pruned. And so when you're giving away your power, you have to start manipulating, controlling, and wrapping yourself into a pretzel, and you're not able to show up authentically. And you suffer, you stagnate, and you're not able to really live the deeper purpose for your life. So the universe is always trying to correct. It's always trying to course correct so that you can be in integrity, so that it can fulfill itself through you, okay? You're a branch on the tree of life. So if the branch is not bearing fruit, the tree is going to do whatever it can to unblock that branch so it can start flowering and bearing fruit. So the universe will cause that situation to fail so that you will get brought to your knees and ultimately brought back to yourself, so that you'll be able to realize where the source really is, so that you can come back again with power. That
is the story of Job.
Exactly.
That is the whole notion of a compassionate universe in Buddhism. And in Hinduism, my favorite god was Shiva, the god of death and destruction, mostly because I was trying to break up with a guy at the time. But they have this image of him dancing with all his arms.
That's
he's
right.
got, he's dancing on this poor sod's back. Who's us, this poor person's back. And it looks like the weight of everything is on this poor person's back. And it looks cruel and it looks horrible, but it's really compassion, because it is exactly what you said. It's the betrayal. Every time you put your power in the house, or the power in the person, or the power in the client, or whatever it is, you will by definition lose it. And so Shiva, fate, whatever, is dancing on your back so you will let go of illusion.
Yes.
So that you can be saved.
Absolutely.
By knowing yourself.
Absolutely. Beautiful. And the more you are on a conscious path, the more you are consciously desiring to be awake, to be free, to be a bigger, pure channel of love and service and brilliance and abundance. Understand that every time you pray a prayer like that, say an affirmation like that, set an intention like that, to be more, do more, have more, be used in a bigger way, that's all answered instantly. But what happens is that energy now is in sort of your, as Abraham would say, your vibrational escrow, and it's building and growing. But if you're not living in integrity with that prayer, then it's like having a hose with the water turned up full blast with all these kinks in the hose. And it creates pressure. And eventually it creates what we call a problem. But that problem means symbol or emblem. And it's telling you you are trying to manage in a world that is too small for who you have now become energetically. Okay, so you've prayed and activated a bigger self, a bigger world, and it's emerging. I love this. I love the idea. It's like a little what do you call it? Like biofeedback. When you say something good and then a little bubbles. It's like reinforcing.
Yeah, for those of you who are listening, every time Derek says something brilliant, which is every few seconds, a bunch of like claps and hearts and love props float on his face on the screen.
Oh, that's right. Some of you are just listening to the audio, so
yeah.
For you, you can't see that I'm now talking without any clothes on, but that's okay. So if you're just into audio, you're going to miss some of the better things of life. But he's gonna be like, yeah, he sure is abundant. He's full of himself, all right. My cup is full. So what was I even talking about, Morgana? I don't even know anymore. It doesn't even matter. We're just blabbing.
We're just blabbing away. So we were talking about the great
about the problems. Yeah. So the great betrayals or the big betrayals. So what happens is that energy that's trying to emerge in you that you've activated because you've said yes to a bigger yes. It's like trying to emerge through a channel, like we said before. You're still trying to hold on to certain habits and identities and your protective acorn shell when you've already activated the oak tree. And that shows up in your life as a problem or as something that used to work no longer works. It used to work to lean on this person or to look at them as my source. It's not working anymore. In fact, it's gotten really, really bad. That's not, and you think, well, what's wrong with them or what's wrong with me or why has thou forsaken me? What's wrong with the universe? No. What's happened? Yeah, it's like Gary Sinise in Forrest Gump, what's happened is that you've activated a bigger world that's trying to emerge, but you're still operating in the paradigm of that small world. You're trying to manage your life in a world too small. And it shows up as these problems, these breakdowns, and the universe will keep breaking you down until you're willing to have that breakthrough, until you're willing to yield, to surrender, to give in to that's trying to emerge and take back your power, which is what you want after all. But it can be very scary. So, and I had a story. This comes from everything I tell you is not just a theory. It's because I've lived it and then tested it and then taught it and then seen the results. And years ago, after I'd had my breakthrough and opening and I'd cloistered myself in my apartment and I was on this deep spiritual journey, I, at some point, ran out of money. And I was so angry. I was so angry at God. I was like, how is this possible? I'm praying and meditating and visualizing and affirming and I'm doing everything right. And I'm so abundant and I feel the peace and all this wonderful stuff. And I was so pissed off at God. And I was like, I ready to be evicted. Bill collectors knocking and calling and my landlord knocking, showing up in her nightgown, with nothing underneath it, with that little cigarette with the ash that's like 6 inches long. If you can imagine that prototypical, landlord that never dresses and, is in their gown all day long with their cigarettes. But anyways, just trying to paint the picture of my misery at that time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this doesn't make sense. And I remember one night finally having enough, and I sat in my meditation chair and I said, God, either this stuff is real or it's a bunch of BS, but I'm not getting out of this chair until I know the truth. And I sat there and, you know, the daylight turned to dusk and the crickets came out for their nightly chorus. And I wrestled my angels like Jacob, and I got pinned to the floor over and over again. And at some point in the middle of the night, this voice spoke to me, whether it was a voice or an energy. And it basically said, you made your savings account your God. You made your savings account your source. And what I'd been doing is I didn't want my savings account to go away. So I was putting a lot of stuff on credit card, and I wasn't spending my savings. And eventually I'd have to dip in and dip in. Pretty soon I had no savings and I had a lot of credit card debt. I was broke. And what it was I was afraid to use my savings because that was my security. And I was afraid to, because I'd made that my source. And it said, you made that your source, you made that your God, thou shalt have no other gods before me. And I practically expected to turn around and see Moses there holding a tablet, you know, looking like Charlton Heston. But it said, and then it basically taught me, it said, when you make something outside of you your source, you have given away your power and you've closed off the channel to this infinite abundance that is so much more diverse. There's not just one or two ways for God or for life to fulfill you. There's infinite organizing power. But you've shrinked all of infinity into your bank account. That's why you're lacking, because you just cut yourself off. You're like a branch that cut yourself off from the tree, and that branch eventually withers and dies. So in that moment, this energy opened up in me and everything drained out of me, and this peace came over me that I came to understand is what's meant by the peace that passes all understanding. Because it's a peace that has nothing to do with conditions. It's a peace that is completely endogenous, meaning it comes from within you. And I was just at peace, and I fell asleep. And for the next few days, I walked around in peace. Nothing had changed externally, but something dramatically had changed internally. I was now hooked up again with Source. And I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I had an inner knowing, an inner feeling that I was taken care of again. Mm-hmm. And the phone rang. It was a former acting agent, because I'd quit acting to become a monk. But the agent said, I know you don't do commercials anymore because you're too spiritual, but they called looking for you out of the blue. And I knew immediately that was an answered prayer. Mm-hmm. I said, sure, I'll go on the audition. I went on the audition. I got the job. And for 2 days' work, I made more money than I'd ever made in an entire year. But the key was that solution wasn't on my vision board. You know, that was outside of my self-concept. Mm-hmm. But it was the quickest way life could fulfill itself through me. It was like, boom. And life knows where that way is. It knows where that channel is. But I had to be willing to trust implicitly in that source within me and get into that feeling tone that I was taken care of, that all needs were met, that I already had what I needed, and then rest in that and trust in that. And then the guidance bubbled up. Sometimes it'll show up as a guidance, what to do. Other times it'll show up as a phone call or a knock on the door. But it's that perfect pattern within you emerging. And that was the beginning of me learning to live more from this insight than eyesight, more from this inner source than outer resources. And I was able to stand in the midst of recessions, when friends were losing houses or whatever, and the temptation was to, shrink to fit the condition. And instead, that's one of the awakened wealth myths, is that we should adapt to circumstances. And that's the hypnotic wealth spell. The awakened wealth truth is you must expand in the face of contraction. Mm. And so when you expand, then that contracted situation makes you stronger in that larger way. And on the other side of that contraction, you're now able to be a bigger channel. Whereas if you contract to the condition on the other side of that experience, you have narrowed your channels. And so you have even less. And I've proven that over and over again. So
I would like to keep speaking for another 12 hours. But I want to respect the people who are listening and who are watching, and maybe we'll have a follow-up conversation to cover all the stuff that, still wants to emerge.
Yes.
I love talking to you.
Likewise.
Really beautiful stuff. So run to get Derek's free Awakened Wealth ebook at emergencetraining.com/awakened-wealth-ebook. Please just go to morganaradio.com and we'll have the link there. And although those of you who are watching right now on the live cast, you can write it down and then head to Morgana Radio. Nathania wants it. Okay. emergencetraining.com/awakened-wealth-ebook for those of you on the live cast. And but for now, we're just going to wrap it up. And yes, you're welcome. And this was wonderful. I would, before we sign off, what is just one last gem that you want to share with our audience before we say goodbye?
The most important thing to take away from this is two pieces. That number one, what I'm saying is the truth. And if you don't believe it, lean on the authority you can feel. There's a vibrational activation happening right now that you can lean into, that it's truth that you already have everything you will ever need. That's truth. And the next thing is then the question you want to ask yourself is, if this is true, how do I need to begin to live, to think, to walk, to talk, to show up in my life in order to model that, in order to live in harmony with that? So I can give you all kinds of examples of how, but if you just start with that, if this is true, how would I begin to show up in my life? And you just keep asking that. That becomes a mantra of a question. And you journal, you meditate, you pray on a daily basis, and then honor your guidance. If you just do that for the next 7 to 21 days, your life will change dramatically. Because it's already here waiting for you. It's waiting for you to tune in and begin to live as if you really are living in paradise, surrounded by love and abundance. And as you do that, the universe will begin to reflect back to you, not something new, but what it's been aching to show up in your life all along. So I hope you'll take that at the very minimal and begin to practice that. And I look forward to connecting with you more. I love and appreciate you all for being here. And thank you, Morgana. It's been such an honor to be here.
Thank you. And to everybody, namaste. And I will see you on the next episode of Morgana Radio.